Welcome, welcome everyone to the Committee of the Whole meeting for Thursday, October the 16th. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Inca, Kappa, and Silk people. 2.1, adoption of minutes. Committee of the Whole meeting minutes, September 11th, 2025. Recommendation that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on September 11th, 2025 be adopted. Councillor Ogan, Councillor Baxter. Any errors or omissions? Here we go. Councillor Charney.
I just want a clarification on something. It says that the Committee of the Whole recommends Council approve 130,000 in the budget. Was this not through a grant? I thought this was grant money and the other 50,000 was also grant money.
Oh, well, this was the unfussy situation. Yeah, that was, yeah, we actually didn't move in that direction. We actually, we decided that there's amount we did not approve that.
Then, but it says it's moved, second, and carried.
It's this Committee of the Whole, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
Committee of the Whole
Pardon
can't,
me.
yeah,
Yes.
Committee of the Whole, we can't make decisions on Committee of the Whole.
Okay.
So that was just a suggestion.
Clarification
Yep.
on that.
Yep. So, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Egan. Anyone else have anything? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We have nothing. 5.1 official community plan amendments and zoning bylaw update to be presented by Mr. Pranesh Jani, Manager of Planning and Development Services, Ms. Krisha Shah, Planner. Pranesh, you're up. I'll get you to push that button. I hear you have 150 slides we have to get through. So.
We have 40 actually.
Oh, that's 100 less than we were told.
Yeah. Thank you, Worship. Today we'll be going through proposed amendments of the official committee plan, and staff is also bringing forward some amendments in the zoning bylaw. So we have divided this presentation into two sections. In the first half, we will cover OCP amendments, and then in the second half, we will go through zoning bylaw amendments. Development service staff has been diligently working to implement these changes, implement these updates following the new legislation. And I'd like to take a moment and acknowledge and thank them for their continued support and efforts to make sure that city's bylaws are current and compliant. We have also, WSP has assisted staff to prepare some of the amendments in the OCP and zoning bylaws. So yeah, we also received some consultant support as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? So first we will start with the OCP, why we are updating the OCP and what's the driving process. As you may have been aware that due to the new small scale multi-unit housing legislation, we have to amend, all the municipalities across the BC have to amend the official committee plan. So that is the reason why we are amending the OCP. We'll also cover some of the key aspects of the small scale multi-unit housing legislations and also touch base regarding the HNA report that we have. It was published in 2024. So the goal is to amend the OCP to align with the provincial legislation and also to align with the new HNA report. We will have in your package you have received which sections of the OCP is getting amended. So I'd like to clarify, like we are not entirely rewriting the OCP. Our OCP got adopted in 2022. It's relatively new, but we are just making changes in certain sections of the OCP to align with the new provincial legislations, similar to what we did in the zoning bylaw last year. And then in the end, we'll have some time for questions and discussions. If you have questions in between, we can take the questions and then discuss that at the end. And yeah, next one. So again, in this update, we're making amendments to the OCP to comply with the new small scale multi-unit housing legislations. We'll be considering the new HNA report. And this update should be completed by December 31st, 2025. So there is a firm deadline has been given by the province that all the municipalities should adopt the OCP before the year end. So, and we are hoping to bring it forward to next council sessions as well. Yeah, can you go to the next slide, please? So just a bit of a refresher about small-scale multi-unit housing legislation, or Bill 44, which is now a legislation that was introduced by province in 2023. And the intent of the legislation is to encourage missing middle housing forms, in particularly single-family and duplex zones. That will increase the housing supply, create diversity in the housing, which will over the time contribute to more affordable housing across the BC. As illustrated in the right in the infographic, these missing middle housing forms are typically duplex, triplex apartments, that kind of developments, even detached secondary dwellings. So in the zoning bylaw last year, what we did is that we now all the residential zones in the zoning bylaw allows multi-unit housing developments, which includes triplex, fourplex, sixplex apartment type of buildings. And that was the intent of the legislations, to allow more dwelling units. So if an area of parcel is less than 280 square meters, then 3 dwelling units are now permitted based as per the new legislation. And if area is greater than 280 square meters, then 4 dwelling units are permitted. So that's why we amended the zoning bylaw last year to comply with these new legislative requirements. Next slide, please. You have to click on it. It says an animation. So, again, in 2023, province introduced Housing Statutes Amendment Act, which is Bill 44. This new legislation requires all local governments to allow small-scale multi-unit housing, such as triplex, fourplex, in areas that were previously only allowed single-family or duplex homes. To meet this requirement, city amended the zoning bylaw in 2024. And then at that time, our bylaw was already progressive and already allowed secondary suites and carriage houses, but we also increased allowable density on all residential zones to allow more number of units. So the maximum density in other low density, medium density, and high density residential zones were also increased to encourage broader range of housing forms and intensification opportunities across the city, while supporting the infrastructure efficiency and complete communities. So now we have a new HNR report that was published in 2024. So now we have to amend the OCP to ensure all the land use policies are fully aligned with the new zoning provincial legislation, and also it is also aligned with the new HNA report. So that's why we are amending the OCP now. Next slide, please. So these are the sections that we amended last year to comply with the new legislation. So if you remember, we reduced the parking requirements for higher density developments. We also came up with some new regulations for landscaping. And then we consolidated residential zones into fewer zones. And then basically amended residential zones to allow diverse type of housing. Next, please. So now, due to the new legislation, the requirements of the OCP have been changed. Now, HNR report has to be updated every 5 years. So right now we have a new HNR report which was published in 2024. So that's why we are ensuring that the current OCP aligns with the HNR report. And when developing or updating the OCP, all local governments are required to consider most recent HNR report, and then the data that supports it, to ensure that OCP reflects current housing needs and trends. So right now, the number that we have in HNR report is 1,325. So in next 20 years, our zoning and OCP should allow to accommodate 1,325 units, and there are different components of the housing that has been listed in HNR report. We have one slide about that, so I'll talk about that later. But then Yeah, so the next HNR report is scheduled in 2018 or 2028. And after that, the OCP has to be amended every 5 years. So right now, we will update the OCP before 2025. And then after 5 years, which is 2030, we will do a next amendment in the OCP. So 2030, then 2035. So it will go through that cycle. And by the time we reach to 2030, we will have a new census data. The new census data will get published hopefully around 2026, 2027. And then the new HNR report will be based on the new census data. So that will the whole cycle for the OCP as per the new legislation. And then the OCP should contain policies related to affordable housing, rental housing, special needs housing, seniors housing, family housing, shelters, and policies for homelessness populations. So I think some of the policies we already have it in the current OCP, but we are also drafting some additional policies to cover all the various type of housing that has been identified in the HNR report. And then our zoning bylaw is already aligned with the legislations because it's already accommodates 1,325 units. So, but we are still doing some housekeeping amendments in the zoning bylaw, which we are aiming to bring it forward next year, early next year, hopefully. Yeah, next. So this slides illustrates the overall timeline for the OCP project. We initiated the project in early 2025. The OCP was reviewed internally to ensure that the current land use designation and policies align with the existing provincial legislation. Internal departments were consulted together to obtain early feedback. There have been some public engagement events were hosted by the city. In May 2025, there was a specific engagement for OCP in July, and recently October 2025 to gather input from the community members. We are currently presenting it to the COW, committee of the whole, and concluding the community engagement by gathering input and incorporating those comments and feedbacks into the draft OCP. And the feedback is being collected through from general public, relevant provincial agencies, community organizations, indigenous organizations. And this feedback will inform necessary amendments to the OCP to ensure alignment with the provincial legislation and zoning requirements. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the OCP has to be adopted before the year end. I'd like to call Krisha to talk about the community engagement and what kind of feedback that we gather during the engagement. So.
Thank you. Punesh. You can go to next. Okay, so as Punesh mentioned, we had multiple rounds of public engagement throughout summer and fall. In May, which is the spring and fall open houses, we presented a brief overview for the OCP, and then we had a specific engagement in July. We also had an online webinar for people who could not attend the engagement sessions, and the webinar was posted on YouTube. We also circulated online surveys, and it was also posted on the doors of various civic facilities, and we received responses through the email. Next slide. Additionally, we also engaged with various First Nation organizations and the First Nations themselves. And these were more of one-on-one engagement just to get a feel of what they know about the OCP, to just introduce them to what the amendments are, and discuss with them what the housing legislation is and what they know and understand about housing in the city and what kind of housing they would like to see in the community. So we engaged with Shwakam Tribal Council, Canadian Friendship Society, and Kentem or CNA. And we also sent emails out to various organizations like Ask Wellness, Shelter Society, and these engagement kind of focused on presenting the OCP amendments to them. And various First Nation organizations like Lower Nicola Indian Band and Shakin Indian Band were invited. They do not have any comments regarding the legislative amendments, and the city is continuing efforts to connect with Novach, Upper Nicola, and Cooks Ferry Indian bands and Coldwater Indian band to seek their inputs. The draft OCP will then be sent to these organizations to see if they have any comments before we present it to the council for the first consideration. Slide, please. For what we heard throughout these engagement sessions was community members expressed a strong interest in seeing these small manufactured homes within the city limits, so that provides additional opportunities and options for people. Many residents, especially youth in the community, are currently living with their extended family due to lack of available affordable housing. So there's a need for multi-generational housing options that accommodates bigger families living together. For low-income, affordable housing is crucial, especially for those seeking employment as they are youth, and they need a stable address to actually apply for jobs and services. And there's a general interest in developing more townhouses and condo-style apartments, which offer more affordable and require less maintenance than single-family homes. Seniors in the community are also looking for smaller homes with minimal yard space so they don't have to maintain the bigger yards. And even the seniors want to see maintenance-free, low-maintenance housing. And the community members are especially interested in flexible housing designs that can be easily adapted to make changes that are needed over time to accommodate more family members, accommodate the aging population, and accommodate their needs. And one last thing that we heard was the need for smaller or tiny homes as a creative and cost-effective solutions for individuals or couples, especially those who are seeking more minimal lifestyles.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to my notes. Yeah, so as per the housing needs report, city anticipates a demand of 471 units in the next 5 years, and 1,325 units in next 20 years. This includes needs for extreme core housing, person experiencing homelessness, suppressed household formation, rental vacancy rate adjustments, and additional local demand. So the OCP update will focus on the regulations to meet these housing demands. So I'd like to clarify like the number of units that has been provided in HNF. So we don't have to necessarily build those units in the next 20-year period, but our OCP and zoning bylaw should be, and we should contain the policies in the OCP and zoning bylaw that should be allowed these units. So there is no legal requirement to build those units, but it's just a projected number that the city needs to. So it's not a housing target, but it's just a projected number that when we draft the OCP and zoning bylaw, we need to consider that number. And then our zones and land use designation should be able to accommodate those units. You can go next session. So yeah, as covered earlier, key amendments to the OCP include implementation of the small-scale multi-unit housing legislation and HNR recommendation. The scope also includes reviewing and updating the EPA guidelines to streamline development approval process, especially housing development. Can go to the next slide. And these are the sections of the OCP that will be amended to be consistent with the new legislation and the HNR report. And if you have received the markup document, I can go through each section and provide like a brief summary about what we are proposing in the amendment section. And then, yeah. So for section 2.3, if you go to proposed text page, so what we are basically saying is that based on the 2021 census data, and 2021 census data basically indicated that a city will experience some growth. However, based on the 2024 HNR report and BC stat, it is and projections, it estimates much slower rate in the population growth than previously expected. So we are not growing as indicated in the 2021 census data. And important thing to consider that after 2021 census data, COVID was there, so that data is also not really accurate in terms of numbers. And however, due to the current development activity in the merit, we are seeing a potential for a stronger population growth. And city has overall experience increase in development application and building permit issuance since 2020. So we've been noticing some growth in development activities. So based on that, to reflect emerging local conditions and more flexibility, we have expanded the horizon from 2041 to 2045, and then created three scenarios. One is a low growth scenario, which is 0.07% growth in the population. So that will be 7,453 people by 2045. Then we have a medium growth scenario, which is 1.8% increase, and then high growth scenario, which is 2.7% increase. So we have created the proposed graph based on those three scenarios. And if you notice, there has not been much difference in terms of overall population. So it's pretty much, the numbers are pretty much more or less same. And then in that markup document, if you look at the age cohort section in the proposed tax, what we have noticed that City of Merritt has, there is an increasing trend in the seniors population. So we will notice the seniors population in Merritt will expected to reach 30%, and the working population, which is 15 to 64 age cohort, it has been stable. And then we have incorporated policies in the OCPs to support more balanced demographic structure by promoting family-friendly housing, accessible employment opportunities, and community amenities that helps to attract and retain younger households. So what we've been noticing, like essentially we are noticing that aging population will increase in next by 2041, and then the working population, which is 15 to 64 age cohort, will remain stable. And in the indigenous identity section, we have noticed that the overall indigenous population has been declined. So it has declined from 1575 to 1480. So there has been decline from 1575 individuals to 1480. That is 23.4%. And also the overall youth population in the indigenous youth population is also declining as well. So these numbers are based on the latest HNR report as well. So that's And then in section 2.4 in the markup document, so we basically made some changes to align with the HNR report. And the average household site has been reduced from 2.3 to 2.1 because we have a senior population that has been increasing. That's why seniors will probably require a less amount of dwelling units in the dwelling. So that's why that number has been reduced from 2.3 to 2.1. And then table 2, I don't think that we have any slides, but in the markup document, we have a table which basically has the population at the very end column. And if you see, so the 20-year need is 76.11 for extreme core housing needs. And then that number has been multiplied by 1.2. And that gives us the number 91. So based on that calculation, the total population of married population, projected population increase will be 2,292. It's in the markup document.
It's page 11.
I can show it. So yeah, we have, so the way the math has been done is that 76.11 is multiplied by 1.2, that it gives 91. And then for homelessness, unhoused population, we have multiplied it with 1, assuming that one individual which is an unhoused individual will require 1 dwelling unit. So based on that assumption, we have calculated with 1. Surplus household information, that number is 0 because that population basically represents a youth which is living with their parents. So they will not contribute into the overall population increase because they have to live with their parents because there is a lack of affordable housing or options. So that's why they will not contribute into the population increase. Once they go out, they'll just acquire another unit. But that's why that number has been 0. Does it make sense? Okay. And if we can go to 2.4, table 2. Yeah, so this is the proposed table. So in this table, we have included, previously we didn't have multiple unit townhomes and multiple unit apartments. So we have included that. So that's why the overall allowable density has been increased. The density for single family for urban zone is still the same, but in all zones we have included multiple unit townhomes. So that's why the overall allowable density has gone up. I think it's 270. That's the average size.
Is that a 50 by 100 or?
50 by 50 by 50 by 50 by 100 or 50 by 110.
So when you had the 480 square feet that you need for a 3-family dwelling, that would probably be like a double lot. So a normal city lot wouldn't allow the ADU on it?
A normal size city lot would allow ADU, yeah. Based on our calculation, a normal size, because average parcel size for Met is relatively larger.
Yeah.
So you can have, you
3
can
or
put,
less, right?
huh?
3 or less on a 280 square meters?
If your parcel size is less than 280 square meters, then you can have 3 dwelling units. It can be 1 secondary suite and additional secondary dwelling units, like detached secondary dwelling units.
It's like a laneway house.
Yeah, laneway house.
So if you wanted to have, say, a duplex and then with a secondary suite needs.
Yeah, so each duplex will have their own secondary suites and then their own detached secondary dwellings as well.
But how many square meters do you need for that? Does that have to be over the 280 then?
That basically 4 units, so you will require more than 280.
More than the 280.
280
Okay,
square
'cause
meters
you don't
now.
count it, each unit plus the basement unit. No, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go to the next table. That's the proposed one. Yeah, so this table, there is an error. We have right now, we have introduced R2 zone, residential mobile homes. That's one of the zone that we would like to introduce in the zoning bylaw amendment to allow mobile homes on as a freehold title.
Where here it says single detached.
Sorry?
Is that where you mean where it says single detached, where it says R2?
Yeah, so we probably,
That's what it used to be.
yeah, so that's why, like in the zoning bylaw, because we have those trailers from Diamond Wales, we are trying to accommodate those trailers on a property near in the Middlesbrough area. So that's why we have introduced this additional zones, but we'll have that conversation when we talk about the zoning bylaw amendments, and then
Yeah, because R2 used to be,
yeah, before R2 allowed single family
That's
and duplexes, yeah, and then we removed it, but there is some discussion that we would like to have it in the zoning bylaw section. So yeah, so if you can see, the overall densities for each zone have gone up because we included townhomes and apartment type of developments in the table. So mostly 35% of the housing, like most of the parcels in the city are zoned as R1. So if you can go to the next table, I can throw on them. So yeah, 35% of the housing units the urban zone will be able to accommodate 35% of the overall new housing developments, because we have lots of parcels and properties which are zoned as R1, and the other zones, the percentage distribution will be in the other zones. Other zones like medium to high density will accommodate 53% of the housing developments, and mixed use number that has little bit that number has gone down to 12%. So the focus of new housing development will take place in medium to high density and mixed use areas, predominantly concentrated in the developed neighborhoods. And then next amendments are relatively straightforward. So what we have noticed in the development approval process, and also in some of the council meetings, that a lot of residents are concerned about having, because they have to apply for a development permit for accessory buildings if they are within the city center development permit area. So that's why we would like to propose amendments, or basically exemptions, so that they don't have to apply for a development permit if they are trying to build a shop or and accessory buildings. So that's why we have proposed some amendments in the city center development permit area guidelines. So if someone wants to renovate a building facade, which does not result into structural alterations, then they don't have to apply for a development permit. They just have to apply for a building permit. And construction, addition, alteration of single-story detached secondary accessory buildings not exceeding 55 square meters for single family and semi-detached, they don't have to apply for a development permit. So they will still require a building permit. For example, if you own a house in a city center and it's a single family or semi-detached house and you want to put a shop and the area of shop is not more than 55 square meters, then you don't have to apply for a development permit. You will still require a building permit, and then that will also go through a referral process. So planners will receive like a referral, but you don't require a development permit for accessory buildings. And then similarly for geotechnical development permit area, we are proposing the similar type of amendment. You don't have to apply for a development permit for an accessory building if your property is within the geotech DPA. You will still require a building permit, and building officials can still, the community charter still gives an authority to building inspectors to require geotechnical reports. So, but they no longer have to apply for a development permit. I think this concludes the next steps. So yeah, we are planning to bring it forward for council consideration, the OCP amendments in October 28. Now we have also amended some maps. There is an ALR map in the OCP. So we have amended that map so that it aligns with the actual ALR boundaries. We have also amended the riparian area map, riparian area DPA map. So if we the problem is right now due to the ongoing strife, we will probably able to not get comments from Agriculture Land Commission. The Local Government Act requires that if you're amending ALR map, then it has to go to ELC for their comment. So, and then I think riparian area map, it has to go to WLRS, which is Ministry of Water and Lands and Stewardship. So what we were thinking that if we can postpone those mapping amendments in LR map and riparian map, then we will be able to meet the provincial deadline. But if we want to proceed with those map changes, then most likely we can only do first reading, and then the rest of the process will be incomplete. So yeah, and that's a lot of municipalities are facing these issues because these changes requires an approval from various ministries, and there is an ongoing strike. So we probably can postpone ALR map amendment and riparian area map amendment, and then we can schedule it for next year, which will again require public hearing as well. So, but then we'll be able to meet the provincial deadline. I haven't heard anything from the province whether they are extending this deadline or not, but yeah. If we just proceed with the housing related amendments, then we will be able to meet the deadlines and we'll be able to complete the first reading, second reading, public hearing process, and then most likely the final adoption. Okay, I think that concludes the OCP amendments. Now zoning bylaw amendments.
So just a quick question here on.
Yeah.
The whole new OCP and the graphs and everything you've used, that can change every time there's an election, can it not? I mean, another government could come in and change all of this and go to something completely different. I mean, I understand what you're doing in the 4 years that they're in there, but the next government coming in could completely change all of this again, and we go through this whole cycle again after every 4 years, I'm assuming. I mean, if the same government gets in, I think we're okay to a certain degree.
Are you talking like the new provincial government or?
Yes. New provincial.
Yeah, but then they have to, I'm assuming then they have to make, we are making these amendments because of the new small scale multi-unit housing legislation. That's the trigger for this process. So
Right.
if a new provincial government comes in and they are heading into a different direction, then they can also introduce another bill, and
Yeah.
then again we have to go.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah,
It's a make work project. Okay, so, yeah, so, okay, thank you.
I think this particular legislation has been brought forward by the government just to address the housing crisis, and a lot of municipalities in the interior and northern region, they predominantly have parcels which is basically zoned for single family housing, and that's why they're trying to make these changes. I mean, to address the housing affordability and housing crisis.
Mr. Attorney?
When you look at the numbers of the housing needs report, I have questions on that, but what I see is what this town needs are more townhomes and condos. We've got single family units, we've got apartments. So how do you get developers, contractors to build condos and apartments for sale? Or townhomes for sale, not for rent?
Based on the latest development activity that we are seeing, I think I have some stats with me. We have issued permits which will allow construction of 208 units this year. If everybody, like we have, there is an apartment building getting built on Conklin Ave, which is 106 units. Then we have issued permits for 1799 Menzies, the building that is being proposed by Canadian Friendship Society, that is 50 units.
But are they rental or own?
Hanet is, I think, rental, and some of them are affordable housing units. The building on Conkling Ave, that is market rental.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we only have one apartment building, and then we don't have enough competition. So if we have more apartment strata, then it will create a competition. So I think, in my opinion, the rents will potentially come down.
But we don't have competition
Yeah.
in the variety for ownership. Like we've got single family dwellings. There are very few townhomes in town. Condos, are there any condos in town?
There was a
Without-
proposal
in,
on,
Edmondville. Yes, that's about the only.
there was a proposal on Enhart, not on the Wolfway, and they were supposed to do multi-phased townhome development.
Mhm.
Are they moving forward, or they? We haven't heard from, they are proposing, I think, how many units they're proposing? 25 townhome units.
See, I think that's what we really have to encourage is that type of development.
CAO?
So if I may, the thing to remember that we're creating policy to create the environment, we're not creating the housing at this point. So the private sector is gonna deal with what they can make money on and build. Ideally, yes, we end up with a bit more diversity in condos and things that people can buy. But our job right now is not that. We're creating the policy and the environment for them to work with that hopefully it spawns exactly that. Now, from another perspective, we can deal with that outside of, say, the OCP through various forms of engagement with developers and try to help them get in that direction. But ultimately, they're gonna build what they're gonna build. So.
Councilor Petrosi? That meeting that the development cost charges open house that we had, there were the two builder developers there. Were they developing or building townhomes? Is that what they were in that field by Band Street there, right? That's kind of what they were just kind of addressing.
So
Councilor
it's similar to what is already on Van Street. The first phase that they were proposing was carrying on the same type of development. The remainder of that parcel, they've got some different ideas for, and the goal of my conversations with them is get started on something. Let's do one phase. We still have to deal with the highway and all the access points. Things are gonna create a lot more problem and study work for them. So if we can get them investing in doing something on a smaller scale, it gets everything for them.
Councilor Richard?
Well, the other thing is, we had changed the zoning up, I think, on Fordsdale, which we recently purchased. But that had been considered for zoning so that they could put in townhouses there was supposed to be, and also behind Hill Street. there had been a zoning application proposal had been done. So sometimes we do the zoning and then nobody does a permit, because even when we had rezoned the area behind Home Hardware, we had rezoned that, so there was supposed to be a fourplex apartment building built, and then the owner thought they couldn't have 6 stories, so they sold the land to Home Hardware. But that was supposed to be an apartment building too, so it's not the first time we've rezoned for condo and townhouse type stuff, so.
Councilor Regan.
Yeah, I see in the paper today that that old, I don't know who owned that house, but that's being proposed for redevelopment of multi-units as well. The one that Colin Gage was just renovated.
Garcia, yeah. We have a rezoning application for that, yeah.
And how many units are going in there?
It's a subdivision.
Oh, okay.
We do have a rezoning application right across the Boston Pizza.
Yes, that's been for quite some time.
Yeah, we haven't, because they were supposed to get an clearance from Ministry of Environment because there have been scheduled uses in the past. So they have recently provided traffic impact study, but I don't think so they have received notice of release from Ministry of Environment. So that's holding up their rezoning for final option. So
Yes.
yeah, that's a multi-phase project. First phase is commercial, mixed use, and then the second phase is also mixed use commercial. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now moving on to zoning bylaw amendments. So the proposed amendments are divided into, again, 2 phases. In phase 1, staff is proposing to create a new zone specifically for mobile homes. And then we also want to revisit the discretionary use. And we have so that's another component of the zoning bylaw update. And then we also identified some housekeeping amendments that we are trying to bring it forward early next year for committee consideration and then council consideration.
Councilor Richard.
So I noticed that you have Telemon on there to have the proposed R2. And if you have that with some of the lots, some of them have double wides. Are you gonna require them to have a foundation and be the A277, or is it gonna be the Z240?
Yes, so we recently had a legal opinion on that. So we are not gonna rezone. Right now they are zoned as R1 actually, and R1 doesn't allow mobile homes. So we are trying to bring them into the compliance of the zoning bylaw. So that's why originally our intent was to rezone it from R1 to R2, but we had a legal opinion that we should not rezone it to R2. We should keep them as it is and have a special regulations. But we're gonna draft those regulations and then bring it forward. But
Well-
right now we are not touching them right now.
Cause I see that you have R2 for Douglas Street between Douglas and Cooley, which is great if a person wants to put a single wide, but some of the people there, I think 1376 is a double wide on a foundation, which can be deemed a home,
Mhm.
especially if they have a basement.
Mhm.
And that's a benefit for the client. I mean, technically, it's a modular 8277 double wide on a
Mhm.
foundation basement, but then it's a lot easier also to have a suite in there. And I was just wondering if that would be considered allowed in this new.
Yeah, so the issue with
Yeah.
if
like
you
there's a fire.
if we rezone that to R2 just to allow mobile homes, then what's gonna happen? Like if someone sells that property and they have a new buyer and that new buyer wants to get rid of the existing mobile home and have to put single family housing and small scale multi-unit housing.
Yeah.
So that can create problems in the future if we specifically zone those parcels for mobile homes.
Yeah.
That does not really meet the intent of the new legislation.
No.
So that's why right now we are keeping them as R1 zone, and we will come up with some site specific regulation so that the existing mobile home use will be continued.
Yeah, well, or if you allowed in the R2 and you had a modular, you did an A277, you could still have your small scale multi-unit housing with a suite.
No, if we specifically zone that for a mobile home or modular homes are allowed all over the city right now because
Yeah.
we did when we amended the zoning. So modulars are anyways allowed.
Yeah.
But with regards to the mobile home, if we just zone those parcels as R2,
Yeah.
just
And
to allow mobile homes, then it create problems for the future buyers. But because if they have future buyer and he wants to get rid of the mobile home and put a single family
house,
house and have a detached secondary dwelling unit, then then they have to do a rezoning.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
So-
why we are just keeping it as it is, like urban zone, and we have a special regulations and
allow
then
for-
to allow mobile homes so that they'll be in compliance with the existing zoning bylaw.
Well, that's probably even better than what we had.
Microphone?
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, to be honest, the biggest concern that people have is can we put another one there? So if you're gonna allow a mobile or that they can have a house, I think that's even better than what we have. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so thank you. With that in mind, the specifics on this is if we do a special regulation, it brings them into compliance now, because right now they're non-compliant from where they were in the past with the current zoning.
Yeah.
So it allows the current use, and then it also allows a full R1 use. If we change it to the R2 zone that we're trying to create, it ties our hands only to mobile homes on deeded land. So we're trying not to do that. That was the initial thought. What do we have to do to bring them into compliance? And the legal opinion suggested that we run a special regulation rather than change it. That way we maintain the flexibility for the owner.
Great.
Yeah, hopefully.
We can go to the next slide, I think. Yes, so the new R2 residential mobile home zone will allow mobile home per parcel. So instead of renting the pad and the mobile home plot, now individuals will be able to own the mobile home on as a freehold title, and it will be connected to city services, and mobile home and parcel will be owned by the same entity. So those are the benefits for having a mobile home as a freehold title. Can go to the next slide. And then the uses will be same like R5 zone. The only difference will be it will be a freehold title. Can go to the next slide. So minimum parcel width and depth requirement for mobile home will be 15 meters. So parcel has to be 15 meters wide and 29 meter deep to accommodate mobile homes. And this is specifically for city-owned mobile homes that we have. And this dimensions have been determined based on those mobile homes size, right? So, and then it will have a standard setback requirement of 3 meters from the property line. Can go to next slide, please. So yeah, if we end up purchasing this land, then we'll be able to accommodate those mobile homes in the so this I think that thing actually. This current portion of the parcel will be to the R2 and the north portion will be to the R1. So we will create fields of that way into this line here and this is the line. We are fine.
Yes. Yeah. Councilor Charney?
Ganesh, you're saying only below the R2 proposed is where we can put the mobile trailers?
Yeah, will be here.
The-
In the whole northern portion is R5 and this portion is R7.
So this is all one property, what we see in the red right now. We recently rezoned this portion to R7, which is the medium density residential. Remember, it was a few months ago. Now, the remaining is currently R5, which is mobile home park. And what the city is trying to do is propose and use a model. So people on the screen, you see. So So, this small portion on behalf of this property is proposed to be added. And remainder of the earth. So this map is everything, and when we move this forward, we will see a more accurate map.
Yeah.
In the R5 and R2 zones, you cannot have a R7, you can have townhomes and apartments. Yes, I believe so, yeah. We haven't received any formal application, but R7 will allow them to build townhomes and apartment.
You'll need your microphone so people can follow. There we go.
Just because we had done a rezoning, I think,
Um,
3 years ago to R8 for Forksdale, because somebody had done a proposal that they were gonna have some townhouses and apartments was the plan, and then recently the land got sold. So it'll probably have to be rezoned again, but maybe the purchaser's gonna do a townhouse development there, hopefully, well, maybe, that'd be nice. But, so right now, if we zone that to R2 and we have, are you planning on doing R2, R5 and R7 for multi-house, like townhouse?
Right. Since that's also private property, the property owner decided to rezone the lower portion to R7,
Okay,
which is medium density residential.
okay. Thanks.
Okay, can move on to next slide. I think we already talked about this one. We are not changing it into R2, but we are keeping it as R1, and then we'll come up with site-specific regulations, which will allow, which will bring the existing mobile homes into compliance with the zoning bylaw. Okay, discretionary uses. So that is a little bit background I wanted to provide with the committee. So in 2019, province of British Columbia published a development approval process review report, which is known as DAPR report. Following a multi-year engagement with several municipalities and the development communities, the DAPR provided recommendations to improve municipal development process in BC. And one of the recommendations of the DAPR report was the implementation of discretionary use. While discretionary use is common practice in other jurisdictions like Alberta, the only BC municipalities that had implemented discretionary use at that time was City of Vancouver, because Vancouver have their own charter which allows them to create discretionary uses. Now, in 2019, City of Merritt was trying to update their zoning bylaw and was trying to modernize zoning bylaw. And one of the goals of amending zoning bylaw was to introduce a discretionary use. Now, after 2020, because after the COVID, the focus of the provincial government got shifted, and the recommendation that was provided in the DAPR report that didn't end up in the legislation itself. So right now, local governments doesn't have a specific authority to regulate discretionary uses. But the previous administration went ahead and introduced discretionary uses in the zoning bylaw. So right now in the current zoning bylaw, we have certain uses like motel, secondary drive-through as a discretionary uses. And if a restaurant wants to have a secondary drive-through, they have to apply for a discretionary use permit. For example, a short-term rental is also a discretionary use, so they have to apply for a discretionary use permit. We've been issuing discretionary use permits. The numbers are not that high, but this year we issued 4 or 5 discretionary uses, and this is mainly for short-term rentals. Now, the challenge is if we end up refusing, if as a city staff or approving officer ends up refusing a discretionary use permits, then potentially it can get challenged into the court. because local government act doesn't give any authority to council or delegated staff to regulate those uses. So there is always a risk if we refuse a discretionary use permits, that will get challenged, and then that portion of the zoning bylaw will got struck down by the court. So that's why we would like to remove discretionary uses from the current zoning bylaw. So that is a definition, and there is a section 4.5, which has additional requirements for discretionary use permits. So we want to get rid of that to avoid legal challenges in the future. And then there are multiple zones in the zoning bylaw have discretionary uses. So we have to basically restructure those uses and come up with a framework that whether they can be placed in the permitted uses or secondary uses. So it has to go through a little bit of an exercise, and the staff is already working with a consultant to come up with a framework regarding how to get rid of the discretionary uses. There is also, as we are talking about downtown revitalization, there are 3 blocks on Kuljanaya from between Chapman and Charters. That comes in the C6 zone. So there are various uses. You can go to the next slide. I can explain that. Next. So yeah, these zones have discretionary uses. So we'll have to restructure the permitted allow and then secondary uses. So we have to can go to the next slide. It's in the next slide. Yeah. So yeah, these are the uses which will require a discretionary use permit. So for example, adult entertainment club, bus depot, motel. So staff will evaluate these uses and then will really recategorize these uses into either permitted use, or maybe come up with a new zone that can allow such uses in the downtown.
Councilor, you can.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering if you go back to that previous slide, any of those places that would be making a development proposal, what if they included underground parking? Where does that fall into all of this?
Parking lot,
No,
commercial,
underground.
underground. That
The facility would be ground level and then underground.
we have to look at the definition of the parking lot. Maybe it has some information or on the, but I don't think so. I haven't seen anything related to underground parking in city center.
Do you mean a parking lot which is commercial in nature, or parks
Yes.
that
Well, would
is-
be commercial, yeah, like all of those places are commercial or residential. Well, if you've got a community care facility and they want to build another one, but they don't have enough room on their square footage, so they want to build this parking lot
so
underneath.
parking for the use of the building itself? So then
underground.
that's like a requirement for the development, and it does not fall into any kind of use.
Well, I'm just wondering because the whole downtown has been considered a flood area.
Yeah.
So is that permissible?
And that depends on the engineer report at the time of development, and the civil contractors reports at the time of development, whether underground parking is feasible and how they can manage it on the development side.
Okay.
Can go to next slide. Yes, so the 3 blocks of Kuljanaya between Chapman and Charter Streets, there are some uses that are allowed as discretionary uses. So the staff will have to have an engagement with the existing property owners so that they understand, because these changes might confuse them. So next year we're planning to have that engagement with them, and then we will come up with a framework regarding what are the uses can be shifted as allowable uses, or maybe we have to come up with a new zone to regulate those uses. So it will require some research and engagement with the property owners before we come up with any framework. So yeah, these are the steps for the amendment to discretionary use. We will identify amendments to replace discretionary use. We'll evaluate new options for whether we will require new zone or site-specific regulations, and then we'll go through engagement process, and then we'll prepare amendments for council consideration in 2026. This is basically a list of housekeeping amendments that we are already working on. Most of the amendments are pretty minor in nature. We are changing the language. We are introducing some more infographics so that public can understand the regulations. And then we are hoping to bring it forward next year, early next year, for council and for committee consideration first, and then council consideration. Yes, and in the phase 2, we will bring some more amendments related to discretionary use. We'll also have to identify a new approach for short-term rentals. Right now, short-term rentals are regulated through discretionary use permit and business licensing process. So if someone wants to have a short-term rental, they have to first apply for the UP, discretionary use permit, and then when that permit is issued, a business license is required to operate the to operate the short-term rental. But if we end up removing the discretionary use, then we have to identify another approach to regulate short-term rentals.
Could that be temporary use? permits?
Yes, in the meantime, we can issue temporary use permit for the short-term rentals. That will be one of the
Is that
solution.
2 years?
It's 3 years. It is issued for 1.5 years, and then they can apply for one extension. So total 3 years. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Then in next year, we are also trying to introduce inclusionary zoning bylaw and density bonusing bylaw. As of, sorry.
That's right, Chair.
So we didn't have to make a special program because we're a community under 10,000 for the short-term rentals, but do we have very many?
We can either opt into the provincial regulation framework that they have, but because we are less than 10,000, we don't have to opt into that program, that regulation program.
And so what happens if we find out somebody's operating a short-term rental program and they don't have a permit?
They have to currently have a discretionary use permit and a business license. If we find out that they don't have any permits or business license, then it will be subject to enforcement.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they have to also have, there is also provincial registry. So once they have secured all the permits, they have to register their short-term rental in the provincial registry. But I think there are probably some short-term rentals that doesn't have permits.
Probably.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Welcome. Yeah, so this is the framework for the short-term rental. So we probably gonna have some separate strategy to address how to regulate short-term rentals. We have to engage property owners, real estate agents, so that they are aware. And then in the meantime, we can use temporary use permits as an interim to regulate short-term rentals. Okay, inclusionary zoning, I'm gonna talk to my notes. So the Local Government Act allows municipality to have an inclusionary zoning bylaw. That's an optional tool. Yeah, as of April 2024, local governments in BC can choose to adopt inclusionary zoning bylaw to require new residential development to include certain amount of units to be affordable or special needs housing. So if you see the first image on the left, if we have an inclusionary zoning bylaw, then we can require developers to allocate certain number of units as an affordable housing units, and then rest of the units can be allocated as market rental housing. And it's an optional tool that allows local governments to require affordable housing in a new residential developments. So we can choose to adopt inclusionary zoning bylaw and require new residential developments to include certain amounts of units as affordable housing units. Typically, local governments will apply inclusionary zoning bylaws with an accompanying increase in as of right building densities and informed by the financial feasibility analysis. So if we decide to have inclusionary zoning bylaw, we have to have a financial feasibility analysis done. And then that feasibility analysis will inform that do we have to proceed with the inclusionary zoning bylaw or not. And once inclusionary zoning bylaw is in place, there are no further requirement to rezone. We also have a certain section in the existing zoning bylaw which talks about density bonusing. So, if you can go to that graphic. So we can use both inclusionary zoning and density bonusing combined that can create more affordable housing units in the community. Right now, if a developer proposes like a community amenity like daycare, then they can go up to 10% increased density. So if they're proposing 100 units and then they are also building a daycare in the same building, then they can go to 110 units. But there are some new legislative requirements in terms of density bonusing, and then the staff will have to amend that section of the zoning bylaw which talks about density bonusings to meet the new legislative requirements. There is also a provincial deadline which is June 30, 2026. So yeah, will initiate the work, and then hopefully we'll bring forward some amendments in the density zoning regulations. Yeah, so inclusionary zoning is an optional tool to consider to address the affordable housing issue, and staff will evaluate potential amendments. It will also require public engagements. Engagement can be occurred with discretionary use consultations. So yeah, go to the next slide. Oh, that concludes the zoning bylaw amendments. Any questions?
Just one question. We've run into this every once in a while. A developer is putting in like 45 or 50, like a subdivision.
Mhm.
They have to give us a certain percentage for green space, do they not?
Yes,
So how-
5% as per the Local Government Act.
5% of the local government.
Yeah.
Act. Okay, so I wasn't sure if everybody here knew that because that becomes a sticking point with most of these developers, right?
Yes. So the way legislation is worded is 5%. It can be less than 5%, and that can be negotiated between the local government and the developer.
And they could come up with a sum to cover the less, correct? They could say, I'll give you 150,000, we'll go 2%.
Yeah, there is a pay and leave option as well. So if they don't want to provide us a park, then they'd have to pay us.
Mr. Attorney?
Can I have clarification on that 5%?
Mhm.
Is that just for the development or is it public land? Just
It's-
for the development?
Is for the subdivision. So
For the subdivision.
if you're creating 10 lot, 5 lot subdivision, so the 5% is calculated based on the total land area. So if your total land area is 100 square meters, then 5 square meters will be park
Great,
dedication.
thank you.
Counselor Hitchcock?
Yeah, well, we had that recently with that Akron development on Pope Place there, and they were trying to give us a park or a small sum of money. But we need a park there because that neighborhood, you're trying to promote families and things like that. So that's what we were hoping for.
It's a bit of a sticking point.
Well, yeah. We lost a nice park. Granite Crescent used to have a nice one a couple doors down from where Councillor Ogan used to live, but he doesn't remember because it was taken out in 1995 and a single family dwelling built there. But Councillor Baxter would remember that park.
Any further questions, comments, feedback?
No, great. work.
Any other feedback council wants to see in the OCP amendments? We can include that.
Thank you for the work and hold on. Counselor Attorney?
I was just gonna say excellent report, very informative, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't let us down. So we have one recommendation. That the committee consider the proposed amendments to the official community plan and zoning bylaw and direct staff to bring forward the official community plan amendment bylaw number 2409-2025 and draft City of Merritt zoning bylaw proposed residential mobile home zone for council consideration. Councilor Petrosi, Councilor Egan, any questions on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That brings us to termination of the meeting. We are closed.